Before the lawsuits, before the billion-dollar company, before the 99-cent can become a cultural icon, there were two kids in Brooklyn. Not businessmen, not billionaires, just two hustlers with a busted van and something to prove. Don Vultaggio was born in 1952, deep in Flatbush, Brooklyn, back when Brooklyn meant something rougher. His father managed an A&P supermarket. The neighborhood was working class, loud, hot, and unforgiving. Don wasn't born into power. He was born into pressure. And from a young age, he learned how to move product, count fast, and keep quiet. He was obsessed with order, with timing, with control. Friends said he was the kind of guy who would show up early and stay silent, not because he was shy, but because he was studying everyone in the room, a slow burn with a long memory. In the 1970s, while most kids were chasing dreams, Don was chasing delivery routes, hauling cases of beer through Crown Heights and Bed-Stuy in a beat-up Volkswagen bus. That's where he met John Ferolito, another Brooklyn kid with big eyes, fast talk, and a gift for shaking hands. Where Don was measured, John was wild. Where Don wanted silence, John wanted spotlight. Together, they balanced each other for a while. They started a beer distribution hustle, small contracts, small margins, long nights. But they had one thing going for them: they didn't quit. And soon, the side hustles started evolving. Scandal was always in their blood. Before Arizona ever existed, Don and John launched a malt liquor brand called Midnight Dragon. Their ad? A blonde woman in a tight red dress whispering. The ads were so over the top, women's groups threatened to shut them down. And then came Crazy Horse Malt Liquor, named after the Lakota warrior. They plastered his name on bottles, used tribal imagery, and released it to urban markets. The backlash was instant. Native American leaders demanded boycotts. States like Minnesota banned it outright. The brand was later rebranded after public pressure. But Don didn't flinch. He wasn't afraid of scandal. He just didn't care, as long as it moved units. Even then, he understood something most people don't. By 1992, Snapple was moving. Iced tea was a trend. Don saw the wave and built his own. He and John launched Arizona Iced Tea from a warehouse in Brooklyn. No investors, no suits, no funding rounds, just a bold, pastel can and a promise that it would never cost more than 99 cents. People didn't understand it. Stores doubted it. Don didn't care. He priced it to undercut the market, scaled it through corner stores, and made it every kid's go-to drink in America. But while the outside world saw a feel-good success story, inside, something was rotting. At first, the success looked equal. Don handled the operations. John handled the money. The company split was simple, 50-50. But something changed in 1998. The two founders signed a private agreement. Don would take over full operational control. John agreed, on paper, that no major decisions or outside sales could happen without Don's approval. That document would become Don's most powerful weapon. Over the next decade, while Arizona's profits exploded, John began fading into the background. He wasn't part of daily decisions. He wasn't involved in marketing. He was collecting checks and watching his role disappear. From 2002 to 2007 alone, John Ferolito was paid over $470 million in profit shares and fees. Still, something didn't feel right. Don had become the face, the hands, and the vault of Arizona. John, just the paper. And when he finally tried to cash out, that's when the war began. By 2007, Arizona was worth billions. John Ferolito, still listed as a 50% owner, decided he wanted out. Big. He didn't just want to walk away. He wanted to sell his half to a major player. Rumors swirled. Tata, Coca-Cola, Nestea, global giants that could take Arizona corporate, and John was ready to cash in for well over $1 billion. But Don, he said no, not in a boardroom, not on a phone call, in writing. He pointed back to the 1998 agreement, the one that gave him final say on any sale or major change. And then he pulled the trigger. Don Vultaggio blocked every attempt to sell shares, every offer, every buyer, every conversation, shut down. What followed wasn't a business meeting, it was war. John filed a massive lawsuit against Don in New York State Supreme Court, claiming oppression, breach of duty, and manipulation. He accused Don of freezing him out and turning a shared empire into a dictatorship. He demanded the court force a sale of the company, or at least force Don to buy him out at market value. The court filings read like a breakup letter covered in blood. John said Don used his operational control to cut off his profit distributions, slash bonus payouts, squeeze him financially until he had no leverage left. One filing read, Don didn't flinch. He argued Arizona wasn't worth billions. He said it was worth just $426 million. He even accused John of trying to sell his shares to the highest bidder behind his back, violating the very agreement that kept Arizona private. One founder trying to cash out with $1 billion, the other trying to bury the valuation and keep it all. The tension got personal. Private investigators were allegedly hired. Friends took sides. And two men who once delivered beer out of a van were now delivering legal bullets in court. The state of New York had to decide who was right and who would leave with control of one of the most iconic brands in American business. The case dragged on for years. What started as a private dispute between two childhood friends became one of New York's biggest corporate dissolutions ever. Inside the courtroom, John's lawyers painted Don as a manipulative, calculating boss who had weaponized control. They claimed he intentionally starved John out, all while undervaluing the company to keep it in his grip. Don's team had a different strategy. One word, fair value. They argued John's exit price should reflect what Don was willing to pay, not what Wall Street would dream up. To them, Arizona wasn't worth $3 billion. It was worth $426 million, take it or leave it. Meanwhile, analysts, experts, and insiders estimated the company's real value at up to $3.2 billion, almost 8 times more than Don claimed. But Don didn't care. He wasn't interested in numbers. He was interested in control. And then came the kill shot. Under New York law, Don invoked a little-known clause that allowed a majority shareholder to force a buyout of the minority, so long as he paid fair value. Not market value, fair value, and the court sided with Don. In 2014, a New York judge ruled that Don could buy out John for far less than what the open market would have paid. The man who helped build Arizona from nothing walked away with a fraction of what it was worth. And Don? He walked away with everything. Company intact, private, no public shareholders, no board, no partners, just him. That wasn't a business victory, that was a silent execution. Don Vultaggio didn't take Arizona public. He didn't chase headlines, he didn't even raise the price. While competitors leaned into marketing gimmicks and stock market hype, Don stayed in the shadows. He turned down buyouts, refused outside investors, and never sold out. All while living in a 30-room Long Island mansion, complete with a garage of exotic cars and a private art collection. A blue-collar king with a billionaire's taste who kept one rule sacred: don't touch the 99 cents. That number, printed on every can, became a symbol. But behind it was a man who had fought a billion-dollar war to stay invisible. He didn't just want money, he wanted full control, and he took it. And yet, while Don disappeared into silence, Arizona exploded. It became more than a drink. It became a cultural icon. Rappers name-dropped it in lyrics. Streetwear brands made Arizona-themed merchandise. Instagram feeds and Gen Z trends treated it like a flex. Arizona didn't just stay relevant, it became part of American identity. In a world where inflation eats everything, the 99-cent stamp stayed untouched. But that number came with a cost, because while the can never changed, the man behind it did. Don spent years controlling everything, from distribution to pricing to ownership. No IPO, no public board, no outside noise. Even his son, Wesley Vultaggio, once said, "My father doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks, he just builds things and keeps them." And that's what Arizona became, not a drink, a fortress. Today, Don Vultaggio is worth over $6.5 billion. Arizona remains 100% private, with 0 outside shareholders, no IPO, no board, and no Ferolito. The company he built with his friend, now a personal kingdom, not by luck, not by chance, but by strategy, by silence, and by understanding a truth most never learn. Ownership is louder than fame. Control is louder than cash. This wasn't a story about iced tea. This was a story about how to win without saying a word. Most people think scandal is loud. They think it's made of flashing lights, handcuffs, or headlines. But the quiet ones, they're more dangerous, because while the world was watching billionaires fight for clicks, Don Vultaggio was fighting for control. This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a financial assassination. No shouting, no press tour, just paperwork, strategy, and time. He didn't smear John Ferolito in the media. He didn't try to outshine him. He just waited, used the system, and took it all. By the time John realized what was happening, the vault had already closed. And that's the real lesson. Scandal isn't always noise. Sometimes it's silence with a signature at the bottom. Don didn't need permission. He needed patience. And in the end, he got what most billionaires don't: privacy, power, and control, all without ever raising the price above 99 cents. This has been the Lesson Files, and that was Don Vultaggio.